come as a shock to you, but a lot of games originated from Japan. Nintendo, Sega, and Sony are all Japanese companies. Atari, that just sounds Japanese. Atari. Even though the Japanese seem to enjoy English in their games, they had to make their games playable for English-speaking people who don't like any Japanese in their games. Translators to the rescue! Aren't we lucky we had such competent translators? People made money off of games with lines like this. But really, Japanese and English are extremely different languages. If you don't know the ins and outs of both quite thoroughly, you can end up with all sorts of nonsense. On the planet Farmel, they had the glorious days for 2 centuries. Since the Stardate had established, they sailed all around the galaxy with new type spaceship called Lightship. But one day the peace was disturbed by a mysterious big fortress. It was living and was destroying all other civilizations. I could go on, but I think this backstory is breaking the English language. And the saddest part? This is the Japanese version of the game. So the Japanese were given a bunch of long misspelled English words used out of context, but they retranslated it for the North American release. I don't know why they kept this line, but I'm sure Hal Bailman is a lot safer with a light blaster. Now it is the beginning of a fantastic story. Let us make a journey to the Cave of Monsters. I mean, the Cave of Translation Errors. There are some popular examples of just bad English in older video games that have become dear to our hearts. I Feel Asleep gets me every time. Generally, if a game proves to be awesome, we could care less about its translation errors. Does anyone ever talk about the intro to The Legend of Zelda? Many years ago, Prince Darkness Ganon stole one of the Triforce with power. Princess Zelda had one of the Triforce with wisdom. Okay, is Ganon's first name Darkness? Is Ganon Ganon? How did he steal one of the Triforces? With power? While Princess Zelda has one with wisdom? What? This all makes absolutely no sense. But who cares? We like this game. Things didn't work out the same for Zero Wing. Its nonsensical intro made it the laughingstock of the internet in the early 2000s. Sometimes you come across a game that gives the English language a real good butchering. Bionic Commando is remembered for this. Good thing it wasn't remembered for its story or dialogue, or they would never have remade it. Gather round and I'll talk about a person which I've met when I was young. We've found NASA's top secret material called Albatross, a plan which never was put to practice. Okay. Sorry to cut story time short, kids, but I don't think Grandpa's feeling very well today. There are tons of memorable quotes throughout the game, but the ending takes the cake. Your number's up. Monster. This base will explode in 60 seconds. Evacuate right away. After a dramatic escape, we finally learn our protagonist's name. Hey lad, cool name. Ooh, but this turns out to be one of those RL mix-ups. Or I'm assuming it is since his name is Rad Spencer in the Game Boy version. Super Mario Land was hardly translated at all. They just wrote out the Japanese names for creatures in the English alphabet. If you thought the Packun flower was something new, oops, it's just a piranha plant. Chibibo is a new creature though, sorta. What we have affectionately known as a Goomba in North America is called Kuribo in Japanese. Chibi means small, stick bow on the end, and you have Chibibo. So cute. But in English, it should have been called a Goombling or something. Breaking news! A Chibibo is a Goombo in English, according to the Virtual Console release of Super Mario Land. Damn, I really liked Goombling. I felt so clever when I came up with it. The kingdoms had names that were nonsensical to the English crowd as well. Birabuto. Everyone knows what that means, right? Well, its Japanese name is Piraputa, which comes from pyramid. Pyramid Kingdom. And look, there's pyramids. I haven't seen one Birabuto though. And even though we're used to seeing silly names in video games, those silly names in Final Fight weren't just silly names. The translator for this game mixed up the katakana for to and do many, many times, and seemed to have no knowledge of English names. So we ended up with these awesome names: Bread, Doug, Simons, Andore, and Elgato. Rolento was the victim of the old LNR mix-up twice. Gradius was a victim of the mistake as well. Gradius isn't even a word, but gladius is a cool Roman sword. How did the Japanese ever get these two buttons straight? Amongst all these muck-ups, occasionally we find a name or line that makes such an impression on the fans that they wouldn't tolerate any changes. That's right, you spoony bird. Meet Ted Wolsey. He is best known for translating a number of Squaresoft Super Nintendo games and changing various names and dialogue in the process. Some people love him, some people hate him. In the English translation of Final Fantasy VI, Cayenne became Cyan, Mash became Sabin, and Tina became Terra. Most of us don't care about this, but some fans just want a pure translation with no fancy changes. And this is why some people hate him. Espers were originally called Genju, which translates into Phantom Beasts. Due to memory limitations, there was a 6-character limit on names and spells in Final Fantasy VI. Obviously, Phantom Beasts was way too long, unlike Cayenne, which was just a little too long. Not all mandatory name changes were as awesome as Esper though. Antidote became Antdot. So Esper, Terra, Cyan, and Sabin are all Wolseyisms. They are changes that were made in the translation that will remain forever changed. There is no going back. Kefka is the diabolical antagonist of the game and owes some of his zany personality to Wolsey. His Japanese counterpart was flamboyant and sadistic, but Wolsey's Kefka was actually kind of funny. I loved Kefka's scenes and the character, even though I hated him. Perhaps some of Kefka's personality changes were due to restraints caused by Nintendo of America's censorship code. No swearing and no dying allowed. And in a story with genocide, mass murder, and the end of the world, Wolsey successfully dodged the words dead, dying, and kill by passively referring to death. In Chrono Trigger, Frogos' polite Arthurian speech to Wolsey. The Japanese character was apparently very blunt and not the least bit formal. Since no one else, not even other knights, spoke like this, Frog lost his accent in the DS version. Bash, Mash, and Gash were renamed as Balthasar, Melkar, and Gaspar after the 3 wise men in the Bible. Wait a minute, is Mash a popular Japanese name or something? Wolsey certainly didn't want it catching on as an English name. Also, Grand Leon became Masamune. Why? I don't know. Because of the nature of RPGs, when Wolsey made mistakes, they had a huge impact on players. Take this awkward line near the end of Chrono Trigger. One of you is close to someone who needs help. Find this person fast. Gaspar is supposed to tell you to talk to your party members for help with side quests, but instead he seems to be giving you a side quest, and many fans spent many years searching for this non-existent side quest and the meaning behind those words. Supposedly, a single line single-handedly changed Setzer's whole character. In the Super Nintendo version, he is introduced as a self-sacrificing businessman. Phew, the Empire's made me a rich man. A revised translation for the Game Boy Advance fixed this. Business has been awfully slow lately, thanks to the Empire. He is really a self-serving greedy bastard, only joining the Resistance because the Empire had been bad for business. But then again, I've read fan retranslations that have a translation more similar to Wolsey's. This Setzer is a mysterious man. Bear in mind, Wolsey was working with intense deadlines, cartridge memory limitations, and Nintendo's demanding censorship code. According to Wolsey himself, his translation for Chrono Trigger was done in less than 2 months, and then he had to remove half of that text due to memory limitations. Secret of Mana received the same treatment. The translation was done in 30 days. Then, 40% of the text was eliminated. There's a fan translation of Secret of Mana floating around on the internet for those curious about the full text. I haven't played it, but the before and after screenshots show an impressive disparity between the 2 translations. I have played some of the Chrono Trigger retranslation, and I kinda like the original more. They changed one of my favorite lines in the whole game to this. Boring. And still badly translated. Unfortunately, official re-releases of these games have never had a full retranslation done. Once again, due to time restraints. Someday I'd like to see those guys take their time with this stuff. Wolseyisms, of course, exist outside of those games Wolsey translated as well. For starters, he didn't translate Final Fantasy IV or II or whatever you choose to call it, but it has the ultimate Wolseyism. There will never be a re-release without a spoony bard. But this line will probably be tweaked. The first Metroid game introduced us to the Varia suit. This cuts all damage to Samus in half. So, whatever. It's pretty awesome and has a pretty arbitrary name. Then comes along Metroid 2 for the Game Boy. The manual innocently informs us that Samus wears a barrier suit that is activated when she finds barrier. Oh, I mean Varia. Now, wait a minute. Barrier, Varia, barrier, Varia, barrier, Varia. Thus, it becomes glaringly obvious that Varia was supposed to be barrier. Really? Doesn't it make much more sense? But Varia stuck around because it can also be short for variable, and in later games the suit had various abilities. Another one of the most persistent Wolseyisms can be found in Super Mario Bros. Bowser is probably one of the most recognizable and well-known video game villains, but he was originally Koopa. In English, we have come to know Koopa as a race of turtle-like creatures, which are called Noko Noko in Japan, and Bowser's last name. But to us, his name will always be Bowser. Dr. Robotnik had all the potential to become a Wolseyism as well, but Sega wanted no part of that. Nope, he's Dr. Eggman now. I like the name Dr. Robotnik so much more though, mostly because I have so many good childhood memories beating him up under that name. Nintendo also changed the name of Princess Toadstool back to her original Japanese name, Peach, but it's much more justifiable than Dr. Robotnik's name change. Peach is her first name, and Toadstool is her last. So some translation errors were intentional, others were not. But our friend Error here is not an error. For years, people thought his name was an English error message. This idea has persisted even though his friend in Mido refers to him by name. However, Error has a friend, Bagu. This inconspicuous name never aroused the same suspicion as Error, but it is the real mistranslation in the game. They were supposed to be Bug and Error, the computer corruption duo. Instead, Error left Bagu in the dust as he rocketed into video game infamy. Also, no one ever seems to talk about the game over screen. Game over. Return of Ganon. When you say it out loud, it just sounds silly. It should say Ganon Returns. Instead, I feel like I'm saying the name of another game. Game over. Return of Ganon. In a lot of NES games, the most text you'll ever find is at the very end. You'd work so hard only to be greeted by this. This room is an illusion and is a trap devised by Satan. Go ahead dauntlessly, make rapid progress. Oh crap, so you beat the game again, just to be greeted with this. Congratulations, this story is happy end. Thank you. Being the wise and courageous knight that you are, you feel strength welling in your body. Return to starting point. Challenge again. And it wants me to beat the game again. Luckily, I have nothing to prove, and there are no more ending scenes to see. Game over. Oh! Here you are. At the end. Yeah. Great. About that. Didn't expect you to make it this far. Okay. What's it they do when this happens? I know. Congratulations! You have made it to a happy end. Happy gaming!